Start the meeting today with the election of the chair for the Castlegar District Recreation Commission. My name is Joe Carrico. I'm the general manager of community services. And so the way that we do this is that we will call for nominations 3 times. If there are 2 people nominated and willing to stand, we will do vote by secret ballot. So I will call for nominations the first time.
Nominate Commissioner Vogel.
Commissioner Vogel, jeez.
It's boggling.
Sorry.
That's okay.
I heard it correct.
Yes, I will.
I'm calling for nominations a second time. Calling it for nominations a third time. By acclamation. Oh, do I see? I wanted to do it again.
Oh, that's okay.
It's from doing all the board games this year.
Yeah.
For you, now that you, thank you very much.
All right. Thank you very much. And thank you. Yeah, no need to destroy the ballots. Call the meeting to order at 4:06. Thank you. We acknowledge and respect the Indigenous peoples within whose traditional lands we're meeting today. Adoption of the agenda.
Seconded.
Right. All those in favor? Thank you. Receipt of the minutes.
Moved. Seconded.
All those in favor? And there's no delegations. Move into number 8, staff reports. 8.1, 2026 BC Winter Games report from Tricia Davidson. Please and thank you.
Thank you. Happy New Year, everybody. So through the chair, this report is largely being provided to you for information at this point in time. The high-level overview is in February of 2026, the communities of Rossland and Trail will be hosting the BC Winter Games, and they have approached staff just before Christmas in regards to the potential need for ice to support speed skating events here at the complex. So I'm going to divert a little bit because I was a part of the bid package when the Rossland Trail Winter Games went to the BC Game Society for consideration, and I believe, and I meant to check with Joe before the holidays and I forgot, so maybe he'll put him on the spot for a second, that I believe it came to the commission and then went to the board for a letter of support from the commission recognizing the games. But of course, that's some time ago. I think that was back in 2022 or so, 2023. So, and I don't even actually know who was all around the table at the point. So I have given you lots of information here. Just know that the board via the commission did support this event in principle at the time. So obviously there's a need for ice. There's only so much ice available to support the various game activities that go on, which is why they're looking to the Castlegar complex. The sport event itself is somewhat unique, the one that we don't see speed skating in our community very often, but I was very interested to know that there's a local Olympian in Nelson that is actually a speed skater, that her name is Jessica Hewitt, and she's apparently recently relocated to Nelson and is interested in being what's called the sport chair for the event, and so would be an excellent liaison and certainly a wonderful advocate for that activity and a new exposure of the sport maybe in this region and certainly this community. So they have, they're extremely sensitive. So there's the chair of the organizing, or I guess he's the president of the organizing committees, a fellow by the name of Brian Stefani. He's a Rossland resident. And then he is supported by a BC Games representative, Andrew Petrie, who is actually well-versed in our community. He was a part of the 2011 BC Senior Games when they were hosted between Trail, Castlegar, and Nelson back in the day. So through some preliminary conversation, they were basically just saying, we understand there's some things going on with ice in the regional district of Central Kootenay, looking for sort of some preliminary understanding as to what a process might be, if there's any concerns or issues with continuing down the path of looking at this facility as a host venue for one of the ice activities. And so I said, well, let me put a bunch of information together, bring it to the commission for their general knowledge at this point. And then I did put the idea in their minds to consider coming to your February meeting as a delegation, so you could hear more specifically from them about, and of course, they will then have another 6-7 weeks of planning underway as well. So, because they're just nicely getting rolling too. So on page, I won't go into all of the detail of this report, but on page 8, I guess kind of the bottom of page 8 and the better part of page, it would be page 9. Sorry, I don't know how the numbering of our agendas work. This page that looks like this.
Page 9.
Page 9?
Yeah.
Page 2 of the report, page 9.
That's better.
You'll start to see a little bit about what the event needs actually are. So for this particular activity, they're looking at ice on basically the better part of the day of Thursday, February the 26th, as well as 2 competition days of February 27th and 28th. They would also need a few things like meeting rooms, access to change rooms, and for a host of different activities, whether that be for athletes, coaches, officials, so on and so forth. So they weren't exactly sure what those extra facility needs might be. So we kind of put it in here under the assumption that kind of the more substantial need might be required. There's another couple of other things related to the facility that would be required. So things like there's markings that go on the ice, obviously specific to speed skating. They would need a bit of storage for the actual event equipment, as well as making sure places like a meeting room, if they were accessing it, was secured overnight because they would leave things here. They talked about the possible removal of glass panels. Both Craig and I, who sat in on the meeting with me, basically said we thought that that was probably a no-go for sure, which was totally fine with them. I think it was more, if it was possible, that would be great for the event. We also went into a host of other considerations. So for example, we talked about some ice usage details. So as much as they were open to the idea that the public may be able to use the ice on the Thursday night post-practice session, both Craig and I, and I'm sure Craig will chime in if he feels I'm incorrect, but both of us sort of felt like once the equipment is set up and they're doing their practice, it really didn't make sense to try to be available to the public for those few hours in the evening. We just thought that was kind of best overall. They also, for obviously things like meeting rooms and change rooms, there wouldn't be the ability to sort of open that access up to other activities while the event was actually going on. Things like our concession services would not be impacted. They would be able to be open and operational as they normally would be. The BC Games group does not operate concession services at all. And there's certainly, as far as like usage, there wouldn't be any impact on the fitness center or the pool, but obviously busyness of the facility would potentially impact other users. And of course, the general public would be welcome. It's a public event. They would certainly encourage and hope that we would promote the activity and would want people to come. There is, of course, with many of these large events, some opportunity for legacy funding. We didn't get into a lot of detail. I don't know what that could look like, but there is that potential opportunity as becomes hosting these activities overall. So in the financial section on page 3 of the report, I think page 10 of the actual package, we provided them some information related to the actual costs of the venue. And my apologies that the first version of this I'd missed, it was 3 rooms for 3 consecutive days. So I've now broken it out so you could actually see it in more detail. The fees are based on our fees and charges schedule at a fee that has been identified that would be appropriate for this type of an event. They're certainly aware of that. They're certainly also aware that we are not the host community, and so would understand that there would be some facility costs, but they were, careful and also saying it would be great if there was anything that we could do about those fees or any charges that would come with use of the facility. And I said they would be welcome to bring that to the table. So I think the next most important part, at least from my perspective, there's some general information in 3.4 and 3.5, but some of the other communication considerations I think are important to just flag. Because as we all know, the ice season starts to wind down come February and March of this year, and planning, as much as ice winds down, still continues on for lots of groups like the Castlegar Rebels, minor hockey groups, certainly figure skating. And so through our discussion, felt that should this event proceed, or we start to flag it as something that could proceed, we felt it was appropriate to communicate out to some of those groups for their planning purposes that those dates might be unavailable in the month of February in 2026. So to me, that's an important piece to note. And in particular, with the closure of the Pioneer, that communication is even more, I think, essential for everyone's planning purposes. So maybe with that, I will throw it open for questions.
Commissioner Haynes, to be on.
Through the chair, I think this is a fantastic idea, just to get some local input into the winter games or whatever. And I'm assuming at that February meeting when they come, they'll be asking for some reduction, or at that meeting, they'll have the request what they actually need. Is that correct? Yeah, for staff?
Through the chair, yes, that would be the direction I would give them, assuming you would like them to come as a delegation.
Yeah, and just supplement if I, well,
Yeah, go ahead.
did you have something?
No, cool.
Okay. And then, yeah, I agree with the communication. As soon as possible, get that information out that those 3 days may not be available. And just go from there, especially because that's probably a high tournament weekend for hockey.
Mr. Hanegraaff.
Yeah, my concern is around the communications piece. I think it's good. I think it's good for Castlegar having an event like this. Of course, it would have been better 2 years ago when we still had the Pioneer going, and that's not our reality. So I guess my question is, are we just going to send them a letter? Or are we going to invite them in for a discussion? Have we thought about that? And I think we need to know that we're going to go ahead before we say anything to people, because, saying we're going to do it and then not doing it just creates all kinds of other problems. But I'd love to see speed skating live. I've tried speed skating. It's not easy. I think it would be fun to watch. So, those are my concerns.
Yeah, not a lot that hasn't been said. I think I was around the table when this came. We did send a letter and support to it. And I agree with Director Hanegraaff. I think we just need to make a decision of whether or not we want to go ahead with it, so that we can communicate to those groups ASAP that are doing their planning within our facility. It is 3 days. I know it's high season for them, but still 3 days. And if we can ask them to come to February, just so we can hash out some of the details. But I am more than happy to, if we need a formal motion to say, we're going to go ahead with it, we can. Or if you want to wait till February, I don't know how much time you want to make sure that community groups know. So whatever you want to wait. If you want to wait, or you want it now.
Can we look and see if we typically have a tournament here on that weekend? Because those tournaments tend to be, they're like bonspiels. They're set, it's the same time in the same place every year. I think it would be good to know if we have never had a tournament on that weekend, that would be helpful.
So in allocation, go ahead.
Okay.
So through the chair, the one thing we did flag to the group is that we do have an allocation process. We did outline where they would fit in the priority, which is very high on the actual allocation process. So the policy does exist. I don't even know that necessarily that approval from the commission would be required per se if they submitted an allocation request as per our typical process. If we were to go outside of the policy and want to turn around and tell them that you have the ice, please plan for it and go ahead, then that would be a step outside of the policy, in my opinion, or process that we would typically follow. When I gave them the timelines of our allocation process, it seemed to work for them. I'm sure that if commission wished to go outside of that policy and grant them use of that ice, then they would be more than happy to accept that. But we did flag to them what our actual existing practice would be.
Do you want
Yeah, so through the chair, first concern was the allocation. So to know that, every year, so there is no, you had it last year, you get it this year. So that doesn't exist. So there's no concern, there. So groups have not pre-planned, that far ahead. And the other thing is that normally fees are not waived or deducted. They're board set fees, but what commissions have done is provide grants to cover off those costs. And in that case, you could even consider in 2026, for example, you could consider creating a grant line in S222, provide them a grant, and then they pay the rental rate. It is important because what it does is you're like looking if the facility would be typically booked that weekend, which I would think that it would. That means that your revenues year to year are consistent. You don't all of a sudden have $10,000 in revenue. That is not there. You can actually attribute why the expense is done. And when you look at what we're doing with whether it be our leisure access program, which you're going to be now seeing as a revenue and an expense. So you'll actually see what are you subsidizing through that program. It kind of all plays together. I just want to make sure we try not to use the words like deductions or things like that. Yeah.
Did you have another?
Yeah, two things. One, you said the one thing about making sure that we do it outside of our revenue stream so that it's consistent. That was my first thing. Second thing, I understand they have an allocation policy and all these things. With the sensitivity to our ICE users right now, I feel more comfortable being able to give them the information as soon as possible. My concern with waiting for the allocation and then to put all that in, because they're already starting to do their planning, especially with knowing they're only going to have one sheet next year, I would rather be able to tell them ahead of time if we're all on board with going ahead with this. And I would rather be able to say, we know this is coming, so plan for it, than to wait for an allocation and say, oh, well, someone who has more priority than you actually, asked for ICE and so they get it before you. I don't want that sensitivity right now. So that's why I asked if it's helpful. If you want us to wait till February and you figure that that's going to give ICE users enough time for them to come, I'm comfortable with that. But I would rather have something that allows you to start having conversations with the ICE users sooner than later.
Can I just let you know that I did hear back from Commissioner David, and he said he would join us in 5. That was
Thank
that
you.
was 12 minutes ago.
Oh, thank you.
He's on.
Oh, he's here.
Okay.
Oh, is he there? Up there, but it
Hi,
doesn't
Andy.
for some reason. Well, why is he not showing up?
I don't know, because he goes to arrow over. He just doesn't have his camera on.
Yeah.
I can see Andy.
Just change the.
Oh, you can. Oh, we can see you, Craig.
Wait, Commissioner.
Well, you guys have it on highlight mode where the person that speaks is the big head on the screen.
Yeah,
The arrow at the top probably will show you if he's there.
yeah, you can just scroll over at the top there and you'll see. Just my thought about the motion, Commissioner McFadden, is in that I think we should wait till February and then we put in there exactly, we're gonna give them, the 3 days, a grant, have it all in one. I think there's still time for ICE users or whatever, because that's beginning of February or whatever. I forget what the next meeting is. But then after they do a presentation, we can just pass a motion then of what we see fit. Yeah, because right now we don't know exactly everything they're gonna ask. And I have been involved in summer and winter games before, and so sometimes the asks are big once they actually get their committees going and figuring out. So I think we have time to wait, but I agree, we need a motion just to be firm on everything.
I agree with the motion, but I think we should wait to February to do that. But I don't think there's any harm in perhaps letting minor hockey know and the Rebels and figure skating that this potentially could be coming down, just give them the heads up. But we don't, just say, telling the truth, we don't really know exactly what the big ask is going to be. I see big benefits for the Winter Games. As a former participant in 1982, as a coach. Oh, yeah. I was coaching the juvenile reps because it was the older kids had the minor hockey thing then, the 17 and 18-year-olds. We won a silver medal in Beaver Valley.
It wasn't winning anything in 1982.
Tom Garlips actually threw one of our parents out of the arena for throwing a garbage can at the referee. A true story. Anyways, I'm fully in support of the Winter Games, but I think we should give them a heads up, and then in February find out exactly what's going, make a motion, and go from there.
They could come and hear the delegation.
Sorry, so through the chair, there's no reason why we can't give minor hockey this report and all this. This is an open meeting,
Yeah.
Exactly, right.
so there's no issue with the communication.
Yeah, we can just send it as a FYI to the ice users.
Sorry, Chair, do you want to go to all ice users?
Stay in your lane. Commissioner McFadden.
Sorry, to answer Trish's question, if you're asking my opinion, I would send it to all ICE users. I'm not sure that what else would say, but that's what I would say, all ICE users.
I did say that, but I didn't have my hand up and I'm supposed to stay in my lane.
That's why I did it for nobody.
Yes, all ice users would be the right way to do it, I believe. So are we good with that?
Yeah.
Any
We
other
don't need a
comments?
motion on that.
Nope, not right now, I don't think. We'll move on to 8.2. The preliminary budget discussion with Mr.
So through the chair.
I called you Chirico.
You should, or Chico.
Chico.
It is one of my awards in minor hockey, said. Craig is just going to take us through a short presentation.
Through the chair, can you hear and see the presentation? Can you hear me and see the presentation?
Yeah, we're just trying to get rid of something on the screen that says captions and settings and that sort of
So I
stuff.
think she's got it on more, hit more. There you go.
Okay, so we're good here.
Chair, I have a question, if that's okay.
Trying to change the gallery, but it is hidden in the right-hand corner.
Thank you for taking place.
Hi, Andy.
Happy New Year, Andy.
Yeah, Happy New Year to everyone. I'm just wondering, is this, did we receive this?
No,
No, because we just worked on it yesterday and this morning.
Okay, is it possible to just send it out now, or?
Yeah, through the chair and Director Davidoff, if you cannot see it or you need a larger screen, I can send it to you. Just
Yeah,
a quick second.
I just print them off and then I can take notes on it while we're.
This is really kind of placeholder conversation, a little bit of review of 2024 and a conversation about some capital. I'll just give me a quick second and I will
Thanks.
send this to you. You guys will get to see my email here as an attachment, Director Davidoff, I assume.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
Fine. Shouldn't be that big. Just let me know if you've got that.
Not yet. Hold on.
Okay, go.
Should be coming in at any moment. I'll just start speaking, Director Davidoff, and then if you don't get it in the next 2 minutes, I'll resend. But I'll just preface this conversation as it's very high level. We have some a little bit of work to do yet on some of the surpluses for both services. The good news is we in both services we managed a surplus not only in operating but also in capital. As you all know, we didn't spend the money on the roof repairs for the arena, so that was carried forward. We did some financial plan amending, but The good news is revenue, and this is showing for S222, the 2024, that says actuals, but I think that's not to November, that's to the end of the year. Revenue for rental income specifically was well above budget.
To November?
Through to Craig.
Yeah.
You're right. It's to the middle of December. So there's still 15 days
Of revenue there, correct. So between that and some of the spreadsheets I was working on today and yesterday, I'm 95% confident in the information I'm about to share with you. But it's really to paint a picture that financially we delivered the services under budget in operating. Revenue for the services delivered came in above the budgeted amounts, and certainly I'll defer to Tricia and Joe to comment on the revenue piece on both once I speak about S227. But you'll notice that there's an operating, certainly a revenue surplus compared to what was budgeted. Certainly in rental income, sales of service was a little bit under, but still in S222 the revenue through the front point of sale was more than anticipated. And then in S227, user fees significantly higher than budget. Rental income a little bit lower, but sales of service a little bit higher. So again, a bit of a revenue surplus. I don't know, Tricia, you had comments about either of those as far as the budget for 2025 and how we set those.
Yeah, thanks, Craig, through the chair. So in both S222 and S227, the budget for 2025 that you see is largely built on actuals that were, I'm going to say actuals conservatively around early December. I think the last time I updated it was about December 10th. And so maybe a point of consideration is we've sometimes been aggressive with those revenue figures and used actuals to year end as part of the budget, or in some cases where I would probably caution to err a little bit more on the conservative side. In S222, of course, there's, you won't see it in the detail in this report, but for example, the Pioneer was only budgeted for revenue for half of the operating year, where the revenue, of course, is realized for the whole year. So there's a host of different things that play into the revenue considerations for both services.
Thank you. On the operating expenses, we've condensed this to talk about those expenses that we control for operations. There are other accounts, including advertising and communication, that would normally be presented, but those are set more or less to the budgeted amount, and for the most part, we hit budget on those. So I really just wanted to talk about the big impacts to the operation, including salaries in S222. And I believe that is almost forecast to the end of the year. So that 879 is maybe a half a payroll under. So we're going to hit budget on payroll for salaries, or on budget for salaries. Benefits is a little bit higher, but as Joe and I are discovering, between he and I and the manager, we're still not sure on how we're splitting the benefits between S222 and S227. So you'll notice in S227 that the benefits are actually undervalued, well under budget. So there's a bit of a balancing and some journal entry we have to do still on how we're doing payroll. But both of those came in under budget overall. Contracted services, we budgeted 212 and we hit 199. We're going to budget 190. So a little bit of a decrease over last year. And one of the things we will appreciate is there's a snow removal contract right now that expires that with the Pioneer closing, we will be saving money on snow clearing. We spend about $2,400 a month on snow clearing at the Pioneer, but also that contract is structured in such a way that the contractor gets paid regardless of whether or not it snows. And so we'll be getting into a better relationship in the future, anticipating some savings there. Consulting fees, we had the community engagement project and maybe Tricia can speak to where that's at. I know we had a conversation this morning about it, but in 2025, we're budgeting $70,000 for that, and I think there is a portion of the carry forward from that, Tricia, maybe that is included in the $70,000.
Correct. Through the chair, there's a portion, and the number is escaping me off the top of my head. I want to say maybe $20,000, as well as some money for potential next steps, whatever next steps end up being.
Thank you. In repairs and maintenance, you'll notice on S222, we had budgeted 112,000 and only spent 40,000. I think that we probably could have done a better job of putting the money to good use, and maybe there was a bit of maybe a capacity issue, but I know that we do have repairs that need to be done, and so we are going to budget 100,000 for that. A little bit of a downgrade from last year, and hopefully we'll be able to catch up to where we're at. With that, we did spend, and this escapes me real quick looking at this, but we did spend $14,000 on the skate park repair as part of that, I believe, as well. But that might have gone into the contracted services line by mistake, so there could be some adjustment there. Operating supplies, we didn't quite hit budget. We're still going to budget 75,000. Equipment, we do have to purchase some equipment for. I believe we need an edger in the arena, and we also need a concession stove. And so we have an equipment budget, and I can get into more detail at the February meeting to show what that 55,000 is comprised of. Utilities, just under budget, and so I think utility rates are gonna stay pretty static. I don't think they're going up more than 5 or 7%. That 155 could be another nickel more, could be 160 by the time we get into to February for the budget for S222. And then vehicles is just a number that we put towards repairing our vehicle, and so that number should be pretty static year over year. The vehicle's in pretty good shape. For S227, again, salaries in aquatics, you'll know that we're still not quite at capacity in aquatics, and the goal is to get there. Unfortunately, we're down one aquatic leader right now who's been on leave for a month or two, and I believe is off for another month. And so we're still not quite up to full leadership staff and full aquatic staff. In the budget, you'll notice that we go from 914 to 1,020,000, and that includes a CPI increase, a potential wage increase due to bargaining. And so we are anticipating, we are suggesting that getting the pool back to full hours is going to be a significant increase, a significant lift in salaries required for aquatics, whether we're there January 1st or not, given that it's the 7th of January right now. That is a number. Once we get closer to February, we'll know how feasible that. It's approximately $425,000 to operate the pool for 2025, which is what the budget is. That number may be overvalued, overestimated, and so we'll have a better idea in February what that actually will look like and come back to the commission for with a more refined conversation about service delivery for that. And you notice in benefits, as I said, 168 versus a 196 budget, a little bit of balancing that needs to be done as far as how we account for payroll. And we'll work with payroll and making sure that that's split according to how we're doing business. Contracted services for S227, we spent 29, rolling into budget 25. Again, a little bit of that has to do a little bit better cost controls. Operating supplies budgeted 40, spent 35, so we'll budget 37. And again, in equipment, 47,000 for equipment on a compared to this year on a budget of 26. We do need some fitness equipment, and I believe we need a new slide for the pool. And so that number, I think there's $20,000 inside of that 47 that is accounted for a new slide for the pool. That is a placeholder for now until we actually know what is possible and feasible there. And it is something that is discretionary at this point, but that's what the 47,000 represents. In the capital side, the column in the middle is the original budget from 2024 for the capital. You'll remember that we did an amendment based on the fact that the arena roof coating project came in significantly under budget. So that original 840 was downgraded. And for 2025, I've put a placeholder of 425 in to finish that project off. But I do believe between finance and project management, we're just not quite there because we did pay the contractor for the materials. So that 425 could be downgraded based on the amount that we paid for the materials for that project. So we'll come back with a more refined number at the next meeting. The arena roof insulation, as I believe we discussed this with the commission as far as having a low E ceiling. And that project, it originally budgeted at 680. which was to be done this year, is actually going to come in at around 450. And so that's a good story. The Pioneer decommissioning, which we have until the end of March to get all of our equipment out of the Pioneer, the city is given us, working with their engineers and their planning department. We take the ice out on the first weekend in March, and then we want to have all of our equipment decommissioned and removed by the end of March. And so the $100,000 is a number that allows for some engineering and some mechanical work, but it is probably overestimated. And if there's any salvage or just saleable items that come out of that, that would offset the $100,000 as well. But that number is there just in case we run into any challenges removing our equipment or disposing of brine or any other challenges that come up with that. The arena roof repairs at 885 is a big number. And so the arena roof repairs are not the same as the arena roof coating or the arena insulation. The arena roof repairs are part of the assessment that we had done, that we received the report last December that suggested we have a number of roof sections that need to be repaired in the next 1 to 2 to 5 years. And the original estimate on that was, I believe, $780,000. And I just received a spreadsheet today from the consultant that said that has actually been revised to $885,000. So that is bad timing, bad news, bad timing, but that's thrown into the placeholder for the capital projects. And also in that is a rooftop unit I forgot to mention, which was also carry forward from last year. And Carrie's on the call, and I'll just get him to talk about the Glade project in a quick sec. Carrie, I just want to finish off the S227 capital, and then I'll ask you to speak to the Parks project there. But for S227, rooftop unit, 75,000 was a carry forward from last year. And the roof repairs, this one is also more, I want to say bad news, but the original estimate on the 4 aquatic roof sections that we had received last December was 1.32 million, and including engineering and the price we just received on a suggested option for a 40-year repair is 1.6. And so we've added about 280,000 and another 100 and some thousand to roof repairs that we hadn't anticipated. So, we are working with the consultants to refine those numbers and determine that scope of work for 2025. We may be able to come back to the commission with options to defer some of those roof sections. But if you recall, that report did state that those were in bad need of repair. And in fact, during the break, during the holidays, we had a slush, snow, rain kind of event, and it was leaking into the aquatics staff room. So we do have some much needed roof repairs. I see Director Davidoff has his hand up, so I'll ask Chair if he can allow that question first.
Greg?
Yeah.
I've actually got a speakers list on the go, and I do have
thanks,
Andy
Chair.
going second. Yeah.
Thanks, Chair. Would you like to give questions now, or?
Yes.
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, Commissioner McFadden, then we have Commissioner Davidoff, Commissioner Davidoff, and then Commissioner Hanegraaff. So
I have my hand up for ages.
You can go before me if you want.
That's on the first slide. You can go to. Okay, I got a bunch of questions, Craig, all the way back to your first slide, if that's possible. Sorry, I'll try and make it quick. You did answer most of them. S222, skate park, you said you had that in there. Is that now an ongoing expense we put in to make sure that there is maintenance, right? Like that someone's doing an assessment and maintenance every year on that?
Yeah, through the chair, the plan is to do regular maintenance, not, the larger, if you defer the maintenance on the skate park, as you know, the repair just gets bigger and bigger, and we'll do updates on an annual basis, whether it's $15,000 worth. I think we'll budget an appropriate amount. And I think that inside of that parks budget, it's probably still at least 10 or 12,000, if I recall.
Great. Sorry, I was wrong on the first and second slide. It was actually the slide of expenses, not your revenue. Sorry about that. Next question on that slide, travel. So travel jumped quite a bit. I'm just wondering what the difference between, like, if you've only spent 1,000 this year, why you anticipate spending 7,500 next year? What's the, like, why didn't we spend it this year? Why will we need it next year?
We, through the chair, we didn't spend it because we intentionally restricted conferences, travel, and training. The 7,500 could be revised. It is a number that, and for example, we have requests in for various training pieces that are off-site, but we have for some of the operators that need their refrigeration tickets, they do need to travel for that. Sometimes those courses are in the Lower Mainland, sometimes they're in the Kootenays, but that number is to ensure that we have an adequate travel budget to ensure those people can take part in the training. So we could refine that. We probably didn't have the opportunity to send staff to training this year for a number of reasons, but we do plan on sending them next year.
Yeah, just to be clear, I don't expect you to lower it. I was just curious.
Yep.
And so I would rather our staff get the training that they need. That's totally fine. On S227, your overtime is quite jumped from this year to next year. Do you anticipate the reason why we'll need more overtime next year than we do this year?
Well, we actually budgeted less. And so this year it was probably just really good cost control and not a lot of emergencies. But, the other is, in S222, it's overtime's this number that this is the first municipality I think I worked for that budgets for overtime. And it's not a bad practice, but it is a number that I think if we worked with the operations and that we could maintain. I think that it is probably just one of those years where we didn't have a lot of emergencies that required call-outs.
And education and training on this one as well, is that the same thing as the last one? You just didn't have capacity last year, and this year you're hoping to. Okay. And last thing, you talked about capital projects and repairs. I just want to make a comment that if I do not want to postpone anything that we don't have to, and whatever we need to do to build in capacity to do repairs, because as we've seen, like, the longer we wait, the more it costs us to do them. So if we know we need to do them. The other thing is, it's unfortunate, and I'm sure it's a staffing issue that I don't need you to get all into, that we had money to do repairs when we sit around the table and talk about all the repairs that need to be done, that we didn't get them done. So whatever we need to do, whatever support you need from us to make sure that you have capacity to do those repairs, especially if you have the money to do that, because those are not getting less expensive, they will only get more expensive. And my last question, which you may have said last time, because I missed the last meeting, and if you did, just tell me after the meeting. Do you have an update on the roof and what's happened there? And like, I know we had a contractor who paid all this money. Do we have an update on where all that's at? Did you already give that?
Yeah, through the
Okay, then
chair.
ignore it. Okay, ignore it. I'll ask you later. I think
okay.
everyone else already knows it's fine.
Yeah.
Do they?
Yeah, you told
Okay.
us last time.
There you go. You're saying you talked about it last time, so don't repeat yourself. I'll ask.
All right.
Thank you. That's all mine.
All right, Commissioner Davidoff.
Yes, thanks, Chair. So just a couple of questions, Craig. So the salary increases in S222, that's mostly just the contractual raises. And is it additional staff or not? Like, I don't know if I missed that or.
No, through the chair in S222, there is no service increase. That is a bit of CPI. And although, having the conversation with Joe and an email I saw about him, he and Yev, because there is both of our, we are currently behind on bargaining right now. So there is a portion of retro for the last 10 months. That depending on how that goes, we will have to account for that. So that additional in the salaries piece is the percentage of what we anticipate potentially as part of the bargaining settlement or the bargaining agreement for going forward. But there is also another piece that accounts for the retro back to the end of February. That we'll have to show. I believe it's in accumulated operating surplus, Joe, that we'll have to show that. But the 935 over 896 is essentially anything we're suggesting would be a bargaining and CPI increase.
Yeah, but my math said it's 4.3% increase, so basically that would factor in the percentage increase for the contract plus retro pay. That would make sense. I've got the same question if it's okay with the chair on the S227 budget on salaries. Where we're increasing it by 106,503. That has to involve additional staffing, correct?
That, through the chair, that is almost all of that is the aquatics increase to going to full hours of operation. And as I said, that's to January 1. And so if, when we pinpoint when we can actually get to or estimate where we can get to full hours of operation and full staffing, we can refine that additional $100,000. There is a portion of that is wage increases from year to year.
Okay, and Chair, I've got one more question, if that's okay.
Go ahead.
Oh, hello.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Director David.
Thank you. Yeah, we see the expenses and we see the capital expenditures, but we don't have any guesstimate yet on the impact on requisition and what the percentage would be and what the amounts would be.
No, through the chair, and I'll defer to Joe a little bit. We're just working through surpluses, end of the year kind of thing, and trying to get those numbers together before we talk about funding. And that will be more refined by the February meeting.
Okay, and then we'll get a line item budget, a regular one that's generated by our accounting system, correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Chair.
You're welcome. Commissioner Hayden shares to be up because my peripheral vision works to hear, it doesn't work that far. So I apologize.
I'll sit elsewhere next time.
Which you can go before me if you like.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Just to reiterate about the repairs and maintenance for 222. So if we have extra money, that plug-in still is not fixed in the banquet room. So if we have money, yeah, it's not fixed, Craig. Yeah. So things like that. We just need to make sure we're maintaining and fixing things when people say things are broken. What is the employees' incentives?
Oh, sorry, that's through the chair. That's a number that we put in the budget that's for things like holiday, let's call it a seasonal party, staff appreciation. And if there's any meetings that require us to work through lunch, and lunch is paid for, but it's used sparingly and judiciously. And so that's why it's in S227, we don't do a lot of it. And in S222, it's a very small amount. It's $1,000.
Okay, yeah, because I just noticed in 227 there you have zero budgeted.
Yeah, and we spent 137. That's, it's a number that we just use as little as possible.
Third question is, we don't have a placeholder in there if we go to a referendum.
So through the chair, so in contracted services, there is some money aside for what we've just classified as next steps at the February meeting. We
That's like 20,000.
No, that's a carry forward from, because there's still invoices being paid for the current project that we're in engagement. So, and I don't quote me on it, but I know there's I'm going to say between 10 and 20,000 related to the project that we're finishing right now. And then we put some money in there for next steps, whatever next steps might be, whether that's referendum or something, just further work, whatever.
To supplement, that's about 30,000, right? Referendum, is it more?
Usually we're told to budget. Actually, I can't remember what. The last time we did a referendum, we were budgeting around 40. We didn't spend 40, but we budgeted 40. I'd have to check in with Tom about what our last numbers for referendum were last year.
Yeah, I'm just thinking that consulting fee, that might be tight, 70,000 if we have about 20,000 still, and then next steps, and then a referendum. We might need to increase that a little bit. That's all I'm saying. And then Craig, just a last question, if we're going to keep any of the Pioneer equipment, where's that going to be stored? Because I know storage is a huge problem here. And what are we gonna do there?
Yeah, through the chair. Once we did some of it's disposable. So it's possible that the compressors and some of the other smaller equipment is essentially not salvageable. But we know the condenser is, the shell and tube chiller maybe, the surge tank and the receiver maybe. And so for the short term, we'll store it at the complex. And then if it's marketable, we'll get it to market as soon as possible. And then those bidders or those successful bidders will be tasked with coming collecting it. So it'll be stored at the complexes as safely and as shortly as possible.
Okay, so we have room then, because when we did our walkabout, that was a huge thing. We don't have enough storage.
Yeah, it won't be stored. It won't be stored indoors. It'll be protected maybe with covers, but it won't be stored indoors.
That's it for me.
That's it. All right. Commissioner Vandegraff.
Yeah, I was just wondering, whatever happened, I thought we'd approved replacement of the lockers in the locker rooms. And unless that happened over the Christmas break, no. So where's that at?
So through the chair, that was one that caught me a bit off guard as well during the review of the capital. But we it's a tough one to decide where it sits in the budget, the actual budget versus what the conversation was. But yes, there was 60,000 in the budget for locker replacement, and that was a conversation that the previous supervisor had said was necessary, but the incoming supervisor had thought that the lockers were in good shape. Now, we could look at that and put that forward for the February conversation as a no, we still need to do this, if that's the feedback we're getting from users. But the decision to not pursue locker changes was done on the fly.
Well, yeah, so, okay. So it's no wonder that I'm sort of scratching my head wondering what happened.
So do you think what are you saying?
They're pretty shabby. And, the thing is, you say we're going to replace the lockers. So me, like an idiot, goes out and says, hey, guess what? We're getting new lockers. We're not getting new lockers. I don't know. So I think that, if we say we're going to do it and we budget and plan, then we really ought to do it and not be dependent on, a manager changing and saying, nah, we're not going to do that. That kind of negates the decisions made around this table.
Understood.
Commissioner McFadden. Had a follow-up.
Yeah, as I'm reading through the minutes to find out the update on the roof, which I got. Thank you very much on that update. Clearly I didn't read the minutes very closely. Question about where do grants fall into our budget here? Because I just noticed that the Parks and Trails came in and asked for a request last time. And I'm wondering, because I don't see it anywhere here and maybe I'm forgetting where it falls. I'm just wondering, where do our grants fall in all of this?
So through the chair, this was really a very preliminary snapshot. So when we come to the February meeting, we'll have all of those pieces consolidated. So I just want to talk about a few items that are going to change. The actuals, do not burn those into your memory because they are going to be different in February. The actual salaries will change quite a bit, actually, because we will be accruing our estimated costs of retro to 2024. So it will actually show up that doesn't change 2025. It just means we're going to show it in 2024. So those kinds of pieces will change. Right now, both services have significant surpluses. So the surpluses, number one, is really kind of split between capital surpluses and operating surpluses. So those are going to be big pieces that we have. The other thing that Craig and I really need to work on is those capital budgets. Because what we have to do, so this year, as we had in our 5-year plan, between S222 and S227 will be the $100,000 increase in asset management. So that this year was 700 was what we had as requisition for that. Next year will be 800. So we have to go through with the savings that we have, the money that we're bringing over, the money that we're going to be bringing forward as surplus from them. That's all in S222 this year. So we're going to be bring that money forward. What reserve contributions and those kinds of things are going to go. So we have to really do that 5-year plan over again. So that is going to be a big piece. But what we really wanted to do tonight was, number one, was let you know that we have been working on budget, and so showing you that. But there still are a lot of variables in there. So absolutely. So like you're seeing the capital expense side, but we have to show you the funding side. Yeah. So that piece is all coming. So that February meeting will be very robust. So I was going to suggest that we don't do a delegation. Okay, February is not a good month to do the delegation because we'll need that time to go through the budget in a comprehensive way.
Do another meeting just for budget. Budget meeting, yeah. And that's all I think we did that last year.
I think we did.
Yeah.
But, usually, so we did the special budget after we did that one commission. Then we did it again. Then we did a special budget. So hopefully we can, I always hope that in February we're going to do that and we're going to be complete. But we will see. So there are still lots of moving pieces, but in particular, what's good news is both services have surpassed what our revenue projections were for 2024. So I think that's a little bit beyond just the Pioneer, in particularly in user fees and S227. So those pieces we're going to try and there's still a lot of work to be done there because we still have half a month of December that's not there. And why December is important, our busiest months are November, December, January, February. Like I can practically tell you where if we don't have a good January, February, I can tell you we won't have a good year. We won't have a good year end. So that last 15 days of December is actually quite significant. So we'll see that come in. So I don't want us to get too focused on asking. February is the meeting for budget. Yeah.
Commissioner David Allen.
Thank you, Chair. I just, Craig mentioned that Carrie was going to do an update on the Glade part.
Yes.
Just wondering if that's something we could get. Thanks.
Yep, through the chair, I can do that. So we had a meeting that Director Davidoff attended, and Tricia was there as well as myself and Mark and Sarah. And we put together a couple options for the public to look at and to potentially and hopefully make a decision on. We had a survey put out, and what we ended up finding is that we really had a very diverse point of view on what was wanted or requested, from basically we don't want anyone coming over onto our side to, yeah, we think we like number one or number two. So we finished doing a lot of the consultation, got a lot more information from members of the public, and then we started to gather, some of that information. Sarah was able to kind of put some of those things together, and then of course as we got into the fire season and to a lot of things that happened, and our parks and trails strategy, we had to sort of divert some of our resources to some of that. So Mark and I were hoping to come in, if not the February budget meeting, but come with a report to the commission on kind of the findings of that and probably our next steps and what we should be looking at potentially putting in Glade from the recommendations, and then kind of get the opinion of the commission. So that's really where we're at with that.
To
So,
the chair,
Chair,
just wondering, Andy, what are you hearing from community on the Glade piece? Because in particular, what Carrie and Mark have communicated to me is that the community doesn't seem to have a consistent vision. I'm just wondering what you've been hearing recently.
the bottom line is that the Glade community has divergent opinions on almost every issue that we dealt with, except the ferry service. So that one, they're pretty united. But the key thing is that I think when we had our public meeting, we did get we got consensus on a few pieces. And I get it. That's not the way to do business. Like, we kind of need to get to a point where we can actually do a project. But at the end of the day, I believe that's going to be very difficult to do. I think we're going to, the more research and the more data collection you're going to do, the more you're going to find that consensus on some of the items is going to be very difficult to obtain. So then what do? Do nothing? No, but maybe do some things. And I'm thinking about a phased approach. Carrie, maybe you could help us with this. There are a few things like that people did agree to, and I think we'll see the report, see where the data is, but maybe we can phase things in Glade. Say, okay, this is what you agreed on, so we're going to do phase 1, and then next year we'll look at phase 2 and, what can we do there? And then it might be a 3-year project, who knows? Does that make sense, Carrie?
Yeah, through the chair, for sure. It, as I say, when we're able to provide that data to the commission, it is very diverse. And it, again, for us, and I just want to say we went through something similar up in Lardo, where we did have sort of 50-50 split, although there was a fairly good decision on kind of what we do put there, but it does still create some issues where, we hear a lot because the minute we try to do something as well, we don't want that. We didn't say we wanted that, but we put it in. So I think it's just getting this back to you guys to kind of provide the information at least, so that we can maybe have your feedback, as a commission to say, are we, do we want to put a couple of things, or do we want to do nothing, or what? I mean, some of the things that people did ask for are things that we can't do, like provide a swim area on the river. The risk and the liability of providing, swim buoys and things like that on a river that changes currents and things like that are things that we can't necessarily provide, but it seemed to be a big thing. So again, I think the important part is for us to be able to bring back that the information that we had from the survey, and it might even be beneficial to put out the survey a little longer for people that didn't get it, because I have talked to a fair number of people in Glade that still say they didn't see it, or they don't know about it, or that. So I think it'll be good to bring that information back to everyone.
Carrie, could you do something for us to help the commission with its deliberations? Could you recommend, say, if we're to do this in 2 or 3 phases, what is practicable in phase 1, what is practicable in subsequent phases, and then at least we could make a decision to start with what is practicable as a phase 1 project and go from there. Could you do that for us?
Yeah, through the chair, that is possible. I think one of the reasons that we had an overall design was because we needed to bring that to the agricultural land reserve to say to them, hey, this is the project. This is what we're going to do. Is it acceptable? What sort of things do we have to follow? What do we have to do? And, so really making sure that we do have a fair bit of everything that we want to do.
Yep.
And then providing that is going to be important for us. We can certainly do it in a phased effect. But I think it's important that we have the overall concept of the project so that we can then present that to the Agricultural Land Reserve, because that is kind of one of the limiting factors on allowing us to put recreational facilities together on land that is considered agricultural land reserve.
Okay, yeah, I think this would help us, and we could show all three phases to the Agricultural Land Commission, saying this is the potential intent and footprint of the project and amenities, and but then actually start with the practicable phase one amenities and work through it. I mean, we did that at Waterloo Eddy. We slowly did it piecemeal, and in other places. So I think that's all we could do based on the feedback that we're getting. Thanks very much for all your work.
Thank you.
Thanks, Carrie.
And patience.
We now know, Director Davidoff, we know.
Is there any more questions, comments about the budget? I'd just like to say thank you for bringing us a very preliminary budget to get us all worked up. I really look forward to the full budget so we can actually get a better picture of where we're at and where we're going. I will say that I was disappointed in the maintenance line. We budget for it. We expect maintenance to be done. And when I see stuff isn't fixed, it's frustrating, but I get it, but it is frustrating. All right, let's move on to number 9, new business. And I believe Commissioner Hanegraaff is up. You have some questions.
Yeah, just.
The chair recognizes Commissioner Hanegraaff.
So, like, I understand that we have the leisure access program for low-income people. It's been brought to me that there's a small group of people in our community who are living out of their cars. And these are people who are not comfortable going to the shelter, being involved in that particular aspect of, living precariously, I guess, would be the right term. Needless to say, if you're living in your car, you can't afford the $7 to $8 it takes to come into this facility to have a shower. And you really can't afford, because it's a little bit beyond showers, you can't afford, in a lot of cases, to go somewhere to charge your cell phone either. And the exterior outlets to this building are shut off so that people can't plug in. And so is there a way, I understand it's like 10 to 12 people, slightly more men than women. They're typically people who just want to stay private and off the radar is my understanding of the situation. They don't want a red ticket saying, I'm poor, I'm here to have a shower, which it seems like the leisure access pass really, they're kind of flagged as being low income. And is there a way that people can come here and shower with some dignity and charge their phones?
So like,
And I don't.
so I actually just have a Annie, do we know, like in Castlegar, is there a social services agency that we can talk to that is in constant contact?
The thing is, like, there are certain people in the public who really just don't want to be
So
involved.
this is like, so this is kind of like the side of.
Yeah, it's, and on one hand, it's like, is this really our problem to solve? But on the other hand, we're here for the community and that means everyone in it, right? So,
So maybe through the chair, what I can do is I can talk to you about, we really only did it in Nelson. But during COVID, we worked, so one of the social service agencies reached out to the regional district and to the city of Nelson at the time and just said, hey, we need to provide we need to kind of set up a space that's safe for people to live in, and also safe for them to shower in and that kind of stuff. So we worked with that social service agency and we actually opened up the civic center washrooms and we set up actually tenting areas in and around the facility. This is in the depths, like at the very beginning where everything kind of like shut down. It's just so yes, we can. The question for me to you politically is, where do you see our limit in that? We personally, for me, and I think for Tricia as well, we've been working with, as you know, Director Davidoff and Director Vandenberg on leisure access. I know that Director Davidoff, one of the big concerns is not making sure that program that the barriers to the program are low and does not amplify someone's situation when they come to the center. So I hear that. What I believe that our centers, with this facility, we really haven't done it. Creston is probably our best example of where we have chairs and a seating area and people have places to charge phones in that. Not that we're seeing a lot of homeless people there. I don't believe, Craig, or people in this kind of a situation. But I do believe that we should have our spaces open to anyone. That is a fun, as long as you're behaving, it is open to anyone. So I just want to know from the commission, like, what is your tolerance? Different places have different tolerances for that. But if we know that you want us to explore this, we definitely will explore it and tell you how we can do it.
Commissioner McFadden.
A question and then a couple of thoughts. The arena side, like where there's the chairs and stuff on the arena side, is there plugins on that side? Do we know?
Or you think, or sorry, through the chair, you think
The lobby.
In the lobby. Like, like on the arena side lobby, like where they kind of have the tables and chairs?
There's only one, I think. Yeah.
I heard one of the trade shows or the, when they do like the raffles and whatnot at like hockey tournaments, I feel like there's somebody that plugs in something over there.
Yeah, just curious if there was any that are like you're saying, it's open to the public, if there's any public spaces. That was my question. My thought is that you do have to have some way to capture. I know back when the leisure access before, we used it as a family for years when we were under poverty for years when the kids were little, and it in no way what flagged when I came in. It was a form, one person saw it. There was no discrimination, nothing like that. And it gave me a pass that I could come in with my kids. No one knew. It was the same pass everyone else gets. So in no way does it flag it when people come through. It's just the single person who gets your application, they will process it and you will get the same, you'll get that access. So just if anyone's not sure about that process, I'm assuming it's the same. I don't think it would be any different. There's no difference once you don't have a separate pass. My other thought is that I'm not opposed at all. We do need to have a way of capturing it. And so it's either through Castlegar Community Services or the food bank. where we have a partner that then says, hey, we have certain clients, because not everyone can fill out the forms either. You know, there's people who are illiterate, there's people who have problems. So, but we do have to have a partner, and maybe that's what we explore is with the food bank or with Castlegar District's community services, a partner that says, hey, if we have clients that need this, can we do the form with them, or what is that process? Maybe that's what we need to explore.
Andy, I see your hands up, but Trisha's got a comment. So we'll go to Trisha, then we'll go to you, and then we'll go to Sue. Okay?
So through the chair, the policy does allow for those third-party agencies to support what are classified under the policy as the vulnerable population. But you're right, it does require a partnering agency that then can request passes from us, and that they would then disperse as they feel appropriate, which is basically like a courtesy pass that would qualify as general admission. The idea behind a partnering agency, and I think the wording, and Andy can correct me if I'm wrong, in the policy is an approved agency, meaning it wasn't just any agency. It would be somebody that held a certain mandate to serve that population, but also one that we could make sure that when they do come to the facility that it's seamless, because sometimes people, and maybe not this particular group, but other people who might fall into this category, there's some expectations that we don't want them to run up against a wall in when they come to the facility. So for example, if they are suffering from having a shelter of any sort, sometimes they want to bring all of their belongings with them because it's everything they have and they don't have anywhere else to put it. But how can we work with an agency that might support, helping communicate those expectations before people come, so that they know some basic fundamentals, so that they don't run into another barrier being show up.
This group has cars. Yeah, and the food bank has partnered. I know that the food bank has handed out passes in the past, so maybe the problem isn't, maybe the solution's already there. It's just figuring out how to channel it. So the people that get the sorry to interrupt, but that's who I am. The people who get the passes from the food bank, or let's say community social services, they don't have to pay for them, do they?
Correct. No, through the sheriff.
Okay.
Yeah, so the passes, once that relationship's established, and I should just preface the whole conversation that the active establishment of those relationships where we can kind of have some ideally continuity across the district, so we can have some, 3 or 4 agencies in any given community. That work has yet to start as a result of all of the delays that we've had in getting the actual leisure access program up and running in its new form. That said, it's very much a priority for us. So, but if there is an agency out there that you know of, and in particular, if this group is taking advantage of, that I can work with, I'd be happy to support trying to see what I can do.
Commissioner Davidoff.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I think a lot of the points that I was going to make have been covered. What I know I used to do is the Community Services Society would contact me, and then I would provide a grant, and then staff would prepare the passes. So there was no difference between the passes that everyone used the same passes. So there's no different color or anything like that. It's an actual pass that staff prepared, and within the Leisure Access Program terms and provisions, it's built in that we could still provide those passes to those agencies, that they could hand out. I guess it's such a small number of people. It's not a huge number of people, but basically, I think we should have a tolerance policy, that if someone's really, like, somebody could have a mental health issue, and that they will not even, give their name, and they do not want to have the government kind of looking at them and stuff like that. And I've dealt with a few people like that, and I think for the tiny number of users, we should just have a tolerance policy. and basically, you know, look at this and of course work with all the agencies and have passes there for them to give out and have some type of, like, I didn't ask for any record keeping. I did not ask who the passes went to, because they really did go to people that needed them. And so I think we look at it from a tolerance level and support for I guess the politically correct term is unhoused people, and then do whatever we can to support them and make them feel welcome in our facilities. And I think we can talk about this a little bit more. I think Trish and Joe, you guys could come up with some ideas for us and you know, like to utilize. You're never going to get 100% of the people who could use the service and maybe are using the service to even agree to fill out an application form. That's just not going to happen. So I think we need to figure out how we use our goodwill and tolerance to the people that need it. And I don't think that's why I did it, because I said I don't need to know who you're giving it to. That's up to you. And that's the way it worked. So, and if the leisure access program is limiting that type of an access, I would have no problem going back to the grant system to say, okay, these are for people who don't want to fill out forms, and give passes like that to the community services society or the food bank to utilize. So we'll figure it out. We can do this. We'll figure it out, and let's give staff a chance to look at this and make it happen so that it works for everyone and that everyone's included. I think.
Thanks, Commissioner David.
Yeah.
Just,
Do you have something?
yeah, just,
To be done?
thank you, Chair.
No problem.
Just about the little, hub where people can plug in that, maybe if staff can look into that, because I have seen homeless people in the lounge area, if we want to call that, and there's only been one plug, and they've had to share hooking up. So if we need to, maybe we can look into maybe adding some more electrical outlets. And I've worked hockey tournaments in that too, and there's no plugs over there. Right?
An old house.
Yeah, it's super old. So, what we kind of do want to make it inviting, because that area, the unhoused or the vulnerable, if you want, they feel like safer over there than they do like in the pool area, right?
Mhm.
So if we can kind of make it a little bit more inviting for them, I think that would help a lot. And just, I was wondering, at the food bank, Cabell comes in there, Seaball comes in there. They've helped people fill out forms in that before. So they may want to take that challenge on too, if people are interested.
I'm pretty sure that either at the shelter or at the food bank, there are volunteers that would assist anyone who was struggling
To fill out
around
forms.
literacy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they could help as well.
I don't think bringing someone else.
So they come what, every week, Tuesday?
I don't think it's once a month, maybe.
Is it?
Yeah. Something like that.
They come at Christmas.
Anyways, good discussion, and I think the staff's been given direction.
Yeah.
And if there's anything, that I can do to help, because like Commissioner Hanegraaff, I'm down at the food bank, Commissioner Beatoff is as well, and, if we can help, please ask.
We're out to the seniors.
Thank you. It's not all the time every table that says, by the way, it's good to know that you share that, it's a program. So thanks.
And wristbands.
Okay, me again. And this is, I put this on the agenda because someone in Creston sent a letter. I don't know if you guys saw it or if it just went to Andy saw it, the board. Anyway, so for the life of me, I don't know the purpose of the wristband. I come in here and now I'm like a good child. I put my wrist out, so they put it on for me because I can't do it myself. And then, you know, I take it off later, but no one's actually been able to explain the purpose of the wristband. And I kind of got tired of asking after a while and figured, okay, just put it on me and I'll be on my way to the pool. To me, it slows things down. I mean, I look at the lineup that's there on Saturday mornings. It's at least, I've stood there for 15 minutes waiting, and it's, you know, putting wristbands on kids and everything, you know, the whole thing that happens there in the morning. There's routinely a lineup, and again, it's everyone waiting to get their wristband put on. And I don't know why. I've got my pass, it goes beep. I'm recorded as attending, you know, whatever I'm attending, class I'm attending here. Why do I need a wristband? To me, it just creates more garbage. At first, you know, we were trusted enough to take them in the dressing room and put them on ourselves. There were wristbands all over the dressing room. I have a few in my bag, I'm going to admit it, because I just forget to do it. But I don't know what else to say, but it seems stupid.
So, blame me, because it started in 2007, just not in Castlegar. But the reason for wristbands is, I don't know, but we seem to have more problems here than anywhere else.
It doesn't like me either.
Well, no, it's one person. Wristbands allow a number of different things. Number one, it allows identification that someone is paid in buildings that we don't have clear control points. So like we don't have turnstiles or ways of actually, so it enables staff to know that someone is paid. So it also is that because we are one fee facility. So that means with that wristband, during the day, you could go public skating. Wristband says I've paid. We used to set up little tables outside each little thing and pay someone to stand there and do that. So it is about that. The wristband is also supposed to be, I mean, I don't know, tell me, Henny, because you're here all the time, but it's also that it's an all-day pass. It is now your pass for the day. So you can come in the morning and then come back in the evening. So like that is the intent of the wristband. So for example, it's really, this facility is really different, but I can tell you where we didn't have it one day and we had it the next day. So Nelson is the only place where that actually happened in significance. So in 2007, what we were discovering in Nelson is that we had significant theft of service. Mm-hmm. And once we implemented the wristband, year over year was a 20% increase in revenue, just with that change. And so that indicated to us, okay, theft for service was actually real. What our front desk staff was saying, we don't catch everyone that to chase them around the facility to pay. We know that they went to do something, but they didn't pay. So that is the actual purpose of a wristband. What we thought is wristbands are yucky. So agreed. We wish that we could trust everyone. So we said, okay, well, you can do anything with it. It becomes your pass for the day. And so that allows, and so what we found, Creston had the advantage of closing for a while because of renovations and then opening with it. So until this last one, I haven't heard mean, wristbands have been in implementation there since 2010, and we had really no issue.
No, through the chair, I'll give some background into that conversation from the gentleman that wrote the letter to the board of directors. The manager in Creston had followed up with him. In fact, he used to be an RDCK employee. And the situation that he describes in the letter about waiting for a half hour, we're looking into that. But it was the conversation that he had with the manager is characterized as amicable and no animosity or acrimony. It was really just to point out an inefficiency in the system. And we haven't received, and I had asked that through as a follow-up to this, is how many of these wristband complaints do we get? And in fact, we get more complaints from staff that have to put the wristbands on people than we get from the people.
True, I've heard them.
Yeah, and
But, I have to say that I find it hard to believe in this day of swiping, clicking, computerization, we have gone back to something as rudimentary as a wristband. It's weird. Sorry.
Joe, can I just make a comment? You started the wristbands here, right? Like it was said that they were going to do it, right?
Mhm.
So did anybody do any change management, or did you just say everybody has to wear a wristband, put them on? Because what I'm hearing is a lack of proper employee knowledge of why the wristband is there. You explained it really well to us, but if they're complaining about putting wristbands on to people and the public can hear them, that's a totally different issue. It's not the wristband. It's the extra time. It's the lineup. So perhaps it needs to look at the flow and the overall management of the change with the program. Change is hard for people. And if that change isn't managed properly, it's really hard on the customers because they're not getting the right answers why it's being done. That's just the way I look at it.
So we've identified that we have problems in customer service in some places more than others. So Trish just right now is actively working. We're actively working on a training program for it. Whether that be management of what do you do when there is a lineup? Because when you first open the doors, there can be. On Boxing Day in Nelson, Stu texted me. Don't know if Stu's still on the line. I think it was Boxing Day. Before the doors opened, the lineup was already, if you know, that facility was already past what is the actual end of the building where you come in. So lineups do happen just like they do in Save On Food and Christmas time and everything else like that, or Safeway. So we're looking at those things, but so we have also known, like especially I think maybe this year in particular, right? We're really trying. So I'm looking at Trish because oftentimes we're the ones, but we're really working on how we pass stuff off to staff. In the past, all of that was explained, but it was left to individual management teams at their facilities to handle that. And in some places, it wasn't handled as well as in others. So know that I would say that wristbands right now do have a real important role to play when we have open facilities. We know that customer service wise, wristband is better than a turnstile. It tends to be that kind of an open environment is more welcoming. And we are working on it diligently because we do know that we have some customer service issues.
So have you noticed an increase in, like you said, there was a 20% difference? Those that are crossed, I can't remember which.
So here,
Have you
no,
noticed that here?
no, the only reason I would say that though, is that we implemented it at a different time here. We implemented it coming out of COVID. So we never had busy, right? We didn't have that comparison, like, and that was even the same in Creston. In Creston, when we designed that building, we very purposefully designed it so that there were no turnstiles. The front desk was in the middle, and you could then easily go and see everything you could go to from there. Like, in fact, in Creston, the fitness center is on the second floor. So you have, you actually have no contact to see it. So we opened that. So Creston opened at that time with respect. So we actually saw that as a good opportunity. We resisted here doing that until the transition with COVID. We tried to use COVID as almost as the same situation as Creston, where we were closed and we were opening. The advantage of Creston is we also opened a brand new pool and everything with it, so made it enthusiastic. So, yes.
Just through the chair to Joe, is there an opportunity like in Castlegar, if the lineup is really long for people's risks, or the managers or whatever that have the offices there to jump in just to help? Because quite frankly, people don't have patience anymore. Like, that's the problem.
There are two scanners, that's it.
Yeah.
Sorry. So, like, one thing that we
Because typically there's one customer service doing.
So the thing that, the reason that we changed to this management structure was to be able to see across facilities. And seeing across facilities has opened our eyes to maybe how things were done differently or not communicated or not even supported in some cases. So for example, Craig and I think it was Craig and I always said, but we were having the conversation. One thing that they do in Nelson quite well, their planning is planning when to have the right amount of staff on to get people through the doors. So those are the kinds of pieces that we're looking at. In fact, Craig, Trish, and I on Monday afternoon, I would say, spent a significant amount of time not talking about this particular issue, but talking about a customer service issue broadly, whether that be through bookings. We discovered a number of customer service issues with bookings this Christmas period in particular, and getting in the different levels of planning that go into planning those busy periods. So those are the pieces that on Monday we spent quite a bit of time talking about. And we will, so Trish, I don't know if you want to just a little bit of an outline of the work that you are doing at that customer service training piece.
Yeah, for sure.
Is that okay? Sorry.
That's okay.
Trying to stay in my lane.
Yeah.
Aren't we all?
Yeah, I didn't think that 5 years after I was retired, I would still be having to have conversations about customer service.
Oh my God, yes. Yeah. So, I reached out to a woman by the name of Jeannie Kim, who's the school chair for the business program at the college, and she has a consulting business that she runs on the side that is strictly related to customer service initiatives and a variety of other things that go with that, from everything from conflict resolution to rattle off the list as well as I could. So we talked to her about some of the challenges that we have, everything from getting staff on board with decisions that they might not necessarily like or agree with, that are policies or expectations of the roles and responsibilities they have, right through to trying to deal with those one-off situations. We just had one in Nelson yesterday about their pass being on their cell phone, and they lost their cell phone and expected us to do everything for them to let them in the facility without following our actual procedures, and what position that puts staff in, and how to help them, but also to have them review some of our practices to say, are there things that we could be doing differently, to not necessarily getting rid of wristbands, but is there something that we could be doing differently within our processes to better support what our end goal is, which is to serve the public effectively, while still, holding the integrity of the services that you expect us to uphold. So it's a challenge. And so I'm expecting a proposal from her any day. I had a nice chat with her before the holidays, and hopefully we will get something rolling, probably starting with the CSR staff team. But then Move and Craig and I were talking about it just yesterday or sometime since Christmas, about rolling that out to, well, what does that customer service mean to the programming team? What does it mean to the maintenance team? What does it mean to other people? And how does that roll out across so it is an initiative we're taking on throughout this year.
Thank you. Commissioner McFadden, you had a question.
Yeah,
Comment.
not to joke. So many things. Make it really, really concise. Thank you. I'm glad you're doing customer service stuff. I won't get into all the nitty gritty, but my daughter did have an event here and paid full price and did all the things, and the interaction and the day of was a disaster, with the service. I think her teacher and her were writing a letter. I was staying out of it. I'm I'm not getting involved here, but it's just, it was my first experience with this. I've heard it from the public, but it was my first experience when I watched it firsthand, and they were very organized. They knew what they were doing, all of the things, had talked ahead of time, had come in, had set up times, and the whole thing just they were an hour late even getting into where they were allowed to get into. No one knew they were coming. No one had anything set up. It was a bit of a disaster. That was, I think, in November. So again, I'm glad that you're working with it, because we do need some work. We've heard it a lot over the years, and I think there's certain ones that are so good, and it's so good. Because I've also had there's one gentleman in the mornings. I don't know if he still works mornings, but he did work in the mornings, and he was just the best person I've ever met. He was just so great. Anyways, so that's all that thing. So I'm glad, just to say that, I'm glad whatever money you need to do that, I will give you all the money in the budget.
Wow.
I mean it, because I believe that training on staff has so much implication on everything else that we do. So whatever you guys need in order to be able to facilitate that, I will advocate for it around this table to make sure that your staff has the resources and that you guys have the resources to implement that, because it's needed. So thank you for that. Back to I do think that it does come down to a customer service thing, and sometimes maybe we're just a little spoiled, because 15 minutes is not very long to wait. Really, it's nothing, as long as, which my one point is you're looking at, are you open enough, early enough, that someone's not missing the beginning of their class for that 15-minute wait. So as long as that's in place, we do not need to have an expectation that people don't have to wait 15 minutes. I'm just, from my perspective, that is not a realistic expectation. Even 20 minutes, of a busy day, that should not be an expectation. It's not an expectation in bigger cities. We're growing. People are using the building. That's normal. But make sure that the timing, that you're open early enough, that people can get there early enough and get through that time frame. That would be my only.
Or sorry, but in my case, it was a 9:15 class on Saturday morning. The pool opens at 9. I could not be in the water, especially because you have to have a belt with tethers, for 9:15. So my suggestion was start the class at 9:30. That would have dealt with the backlog, but it doesn't matter how early you get there if there isn't enough time between the opening and starting of a class. And I will stop in a second. I just want to say thanks. I finally got an explanation on the wristbands, because up until now, it's kind of been, oh, Henry, just wear the damn wristband, And so I'm like, why? Why are we doing this? Just wear it. Just wear it. Oh, so.
I just want you to know that we do appreciate the feedback. I really do want you to know that, like, we appreciate, like, when the public actually reaches out and tells us when there's something, sometimes they're wrong, just to be clear.
Oh, yeah, we,
But-
really, sometimes
I
we're
would
wrong.
have never known that.
You didn't buy that piece of steak yesterday. But, let's just say, like, we've talked, I think we've been very open around this commission table. We know there are things that we didn't know before because they weren't getting to us. It's a very difficult now for them not to get to us. And we hear it, and our, Tricia has got it.
Yes.
I do want you to know, like, when we sit around the table with head CSRs, they're usually pretty in tune with it. But we're still raising the bar of expectation, I would say. Yeah.
And let's face it, change is hard. It is very hard. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was out of my lane. Sorry, I'm out of my lane and I'm cold, sorry. I'm out of my lane, but yes, change is hard.
All right.
Okay, thank you. I think we've got the information that you guys are aware and things are being done. And I appreciate the employee training being scheduled. All right, move on. Like 10, public time. Pearl, I'm not sure if we have anybody online or not.
There's a Rob, I don't know,
Okay.
is he staffed or is, I don't know.
I don't know.
There he-
I'll now call for questions from the audience, yes. But I was gonna go online first just to see if there's any, and then I gotta turn around to, if there's a question back there. So if you have a question online, use the raise hand function and we'll get your name and we'll do our best to answer your question. Not seeing any questions online, so I'm now gonna turn my back and ask if there's any questions from the public that are here. Just give us your name, please, just for the public. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Bolo. My name is John Sokol. If everybody hasn't met me before, my name is John Sokolowski, and I'm a resident of Castlegar. My question was, I guess I'm not sure if you can speak to it at this time because it's relates to the reimagining process and where you are, because that process is obviously going to have some impact on your budget, this year's budget. So I don't know, can you speak to that, where we are there and what's the likelihood of where we're going, or?
I think as chair, I'm going to defer to Trish because that has been, she's been the lead on that and should be able to answer your questions.
I'll do my best. So through the chair, so the engagement had 3 phases. I'm sorry, I might be repeating things you've already.
Yeah, I'm registered online and I'm.
Okay, so you've been following. Okay, perfect.
Fully up to date on it. So.
Okay, so at our December commission meeting, the day before that meeting, we got the phase 3, which was kind of a summary report of what we heard, where we kind of truth tested that information back to the community. And so right now, the final report is being drafted. The commission hasn't seen the full culmination of those documents yet. So, but I think they're relatively aware of what the report will say, as far as what some identified priorities based on the people that responded to the engagement process identified. As well as some challenges based on some of the information that were provided as to now what to do with that information. So really, following, once we get that final report, we will probably schedule a workshop of the working group again to determine what the next steps actually are.
So you have no idea at this point if we'll ever reach a referendum because, there's so many issues to resolve, right?
That's correct, yeah.
Okay, and so, for the 2025 budget, what are you gonna And I just knew there, just,
So in the 2025 budget, as like, during that discussion, there is money for further and when I say further consultation work, that could mean public consultation, but it also could mean like an architect or something like that. And the commission was making sure that we did have money for a referendum if that became something that could come to fruition. But that would be fall of 2025.
my understanding is that, from what I see from the survey results and that, and the ice rink being number one priority for the city of Castlegar, that has been identified. It's not gonna pass because of either area, I or J, and even Castlegar, when they're only committing to $150 increase per year, I mean, it's not gonna fly, so, unless the province is gonna throw in a lot of money, I think it's dead in the water, is my opinion anyway, so.
Well, I don't think we can consider anything dead in the water until we actually get all the information. I would take a look at it.
Yeah,
So to say it's dead in the water before we get all the information, I don't think is
I
accurate.
said that was my opinion.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
I
well-
hope I'm wrong. Because I'd like to see some updates to this complex, but, it doesn't look good from my side, so and as far as you can speak to it, that's, we'll have to wait and see what happens, but, it's, yeah. Okay.
All right, no more questions, John? All right, thank you very much.
John?
All right, next meeting will be here at the complex on February 4th at 4 p.m. And I'll now call for adjournment.
So I just want to say that I'm probably going to be late for that meeting because I'm on a bus that arrives at A&W allegedly at 3:45 that day. But it's bound to arrive at some time, I think. So, Director.
3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I would say 5 teen burgers should cover it because I'm as
Or
well.
the buddy burger.
Buddy burgers are on sale. They might not be in February. Thank you for letting us know. I appreciate that.
Yeah. I'm concerned about quorum, so Director David, heads up.
Yeah, understood.
Unless we want to push to a 4:30 start. So I'm fairly confident that if that bus is on time, which apparently it usually is, I can whip home, get my car and come back, into town.
I can drive home after. Yeah, I can drive you home after if you want to come straight here. Pick me up.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that let's shoot for 4 o'clock. And if you're a little bit late, I don't have a problem delaying the meeting
Okay.
to make sure we have quorum. It's an important meeting and we want to make sure everybody's.
Yeah, with the budget and
Yeah.
all of that.
All right. Thank you very much. Call for adjournment.
So moved.
All those in favor? Thank you.
Happy New Year, everybody.
Thanks, Andy.
Andy, thanks.
Andy, is that a painting?
Andy, you know that
Let's just
money
That is
for
a,
Glade,
oh,
for
pardon?
Glade, the Glade money, use it to build a bridge.
Okay.
Hey, building a bridge would get rid of the problem of us being the attractant of everybody coming over there.
Joe, what it is, it's a picture of the Glade Ferry that I took and I
Yeah, we know that.
talk to you.
into a piece of art. It's called Christmas Ferry.
Yeah.
No, it's very nice. I just saw the corner and
Yeah.
writing in the corner, so I didn't know if it was actually a painting.
Yeah, we. See ya.
See, Andy.
I just wanted to send like something out to remind them all that if there's any things that they flagged, we kind of talked about like any inconsistencies or things that they're in the loop.
Yeah. I got a very big interest in. Yeah. Trying to.
Like, then by the time I get it out there, it'll probably be the election day, or I have to like go through election again too, but, obligation.
No, no,
Okay, good. I didn't think so. And then I thought, it's stipend every month, affordable, maybe I should make sure we've got anything else I'm supposed to be doing that I'm not doing.
Just the same thing, but.
Yeah.
Want me to say something? You have that look like you're gonna say
Oh,
something.
that's, yeah, but you want to.
Retired.
Well, there's, did
Was helping him, but it's actually.
that letter,
I'm gonna, I don't know if maybe her teacher.
Best.
Oh.
So I brought him in to help him.
He's also working on who wants to do.
Size.
Oh, that's Enrique. Yeah, Durham is, yeah, he's, well, he's moved over.
Yeah.
And so some.
Yeah.
It's